My team has this motto, run for her, and it means to run for the little girl that dreamed. And I thought back on little Meghan, thinking like, what would she want? I really wanted to look back and say, even if I fell short, at least I did everything that I could.
Meghan Hunter grew up in Provo, Utah, with running in her DNA. In high school, she became the first female in state history to win 4 individual events at an outdoor state meet. She then signed with BYU, following in her family's footsteps.
Our whole family was into running right from the start, but even though Meghan didn't enjoy the cross-country racing at first, we found when it was track, she got really excited.
Out of high school, Meghan Hunter was really just a stellar 400-meter runner, one of the best in the country, not just the state of Utah. I really felt like she would be the next star of BYU.
It had been a dream of mine for so long to be able to run collegiately, and running had been going well. I had a lot of things to really look forward to going into my freshman year.
But those dreams came to a halt in the early morning of July 4th, 2019. Meghan and her older brother Morgan were driving to volunteer at a race when their lives changed in an instant.
I think it was like 4 a.m., still super dark outside. Everything was normal on our drive up the canyon, and I heard this scream from my brother, and I look up, and there's a deer. He swerved to miss the deer and ended up losing control. The car began to roll, and I just remember with each time the car hit the ground, my neck just was hurting so bad, and I just remember thinking, I need this to stop, I need this to stop.
Their car rolled 5 times, leaving Meghan trapped on the passenger side. Morgan, who was physically unharmed, pulled her out of the shattered sunroof, both of them in shock and unaware of the severity of Meghan's injuries.
We're telling each other that everything was fine. I just had whiplash. My parents were gonna come pick me up.
Morgan told me that they'd been in an accident. Of course, I asked if they were both okay, and he said, yeah, they were both doing fine, that Meghan's neck was kind of sore. And I thought, okay, it's not that big of a deal.
When we got there, we realized it was a lot worse than that. I see Meghan, and she's on a spine board, so she can't really turn her head, but she just glances over to me and says, Dad, am I gonna be okay?
Meghan was rushed to the ER and then airlifted to Utah Valley Hospital, where doctors told her she had a broken neck.
Even though I'd seen the severity of the crash and my neck was hurting really bad at that point, I just didn't want to believe it at first.
See 3, 4, 5 all broken, 5 is in pieces. We see the spinal cord that's not a straight line anymore. And I'm just starting to feel really lightheaded. It was really scary.
She was very, very fortunate that she didn't have any paralysis at all. It was millimeters, basically, where the fracture was, that it could have been a long-term paralysis.
Her dream of going to BYU and running is now forever over, was my thought, because how do you come back from a broken neck and run collegiately?
Following a 7-hour surgery, doctors remained hopeful that Meghan would return to running in 1 to 2 years. The very next day, she took her first steps.
To be able to do that so soon after surgery was really just a relief to me. Something that I didn't realize was my dad was timing my laps around the hospital. I was progressively getting quicker and quicker.
The first few weeks and even months, I'd say, there was progress seen. She knew she was going to get back to running again someday. And the first run was on what we call the HydroWorks treadmill. And it was only another week or 2 that he cleared her for some running on the indoor track.
Everything felt weird, everything felt a little bit off, but it just felt so amazing to be able to be there again. Even in the early stages when I was just barely getting back onto the track, I knew I still wanted to compete so badly.
19 months after the accident, Meghan returned to racing. Her intense physical work to get back to the track had paid off, but mentally, the crash began to haunt her.
I remember just this weird feeling coming over me. A teammate turned to me and asked, like, are you okay? And in that moment, like, everything just came out. I was hyperventilating, I was crying, I felt like the crash was just happening all over again. It brought back a lot of emotions that I didn't want to ever feel again.
And she, at the time, I think thought, hopefully that was a one-time event, but that kind of continued.
She has to sit behind the passenger in every car she ever gets in. If you're the driver, you can't hit a road bump, you can't change a lane too fast, you can't drive by an accident, you can't drive in the rain, there can't be sirens driving by. All of those are triggers for a panic attack.
Meghan was diagnosed with PTSD and has spent years battling the trauma while not competing at her full potential, often faced with the question if she should just quit.
I've given her that option so many times. Just like, is it worth it? Do you want to keep doing this? Should we be done? But there was something inside her that was like, don't give up.
I felt like I had made it so far already, and I'm so happy that I chose to pick myself back up and keep going.
In 2023, 4 years after the accident, Meghan became a first-team All-American, finishing 8th in the NCAA Outdoor 800 meters. Then at indoors, she earned those honors again, finishing 3rd in the country.
Meghan is just not a quitter. I think there are a lot of people that could have just given up because it has been so hard.
That has been probably the thing I'm going to be the most proud of, is like how she's continued to show up when everything in her mind tells her not to.
It's been really hard physically and mentally to get through it, and it's taken a lot of years, and it's something that's going to be with me my whole life. I would say that little Meghan and future Meghan are proud of what I've been through and what I've overcome and where I'm at now, and that gives me a lot of hope.